Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Producer. We are back with the one and only Thomas Smith. Thomas is a Marine. Thomas has done so much research, which led him to make so many advances working with this CES. He's certified in 9 different areas of mental health counseling. He has a passion to work with veterans and to help them out, and he's done an amazing job. I'm psyched to have you here. Hey, guys, Thomas Smith is here with us. Thomas, how are you, man?
I'm doing awesome. I get kind of excited to get to be with you every week, man. It's getting to be cool.
I love your show. I love your show because I know how anytime someone has a passion like you to do something like what you're doing, and when you're helping people on top of that, I mean, it's so fun to watch. You just look at you, you see how this is like it's so important, and you're so passionate about it. So it's really cool. So if you could tell the audience, first time they ever heard your show, just in case they haven't heard it before, tell them a little bit about you. I was just telling them a little bit that I know from doing the show, but tell us about Thomas Smith.
Sure, man. Kind of a backstory. I'm born and raised in Waynesburg, Virginia, and joined the Marine Corps in 1981, just 3 months out of high school, and served my country in the Marine Corps. I was in Supply Battalion in Hawaii, and so started discovering some health issues, mental health issues when I got out. Started looking into what some of the problems, and come to find out that I was actually diagnosed as ADHD back then in the 80s. They didn't know what that was, and some bipolar and manic and things like that. So, I have a concoction of things that I've worked on my whole life, which got me into researching as far as what's causing this, what can I do to help myself. So this goes all the way back to the 80s. Hardcore, moving into the last probably decade, is when I started really homing in on hardcore research. Because now I'm an adult. Now I'm working with adults. Now I see a lot of the problems that's going on within our veteran community. But it overlaps. I mean, so even if you're not a veteran, it's still going to make sense to you what I'm talking about. And today's show, I'm really, really excited about, because you're giving me the opportunity to educate people for the very first time what moral injury is, because it's it's been around for a while. So we're going to get into it today, Casey, and we're going to be able to take a look at it so people can understand what it's really about.
Moral injury.
Yeah.
Hey, does this happen to just people in the military, or does this happen to everybody?
Well, we've been talking of the last few episodes about PTSD and the mental health and being hardwired, and guys going in the military, getting out, really struggling and things like that. But just some backstory and history on moral injury. It was founded really and started in the 1990s by Dr. Shea, who was a psychiatrist for the Department of Veterans Affairs. And what happened was, he was taking, at that time, Vietnam veterans and was working with them on, the old term was shell shocked, but we started moving into PTSD once they coined that phrase. But then he started getting into therapy with these guys, and what he was doing was cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like the leading therapy for people with PTSD and long-term trauma therapy. And at the end of his research, he basically came to the conclusion, wow, there's still a lot of these things we don't even know what's going on. So in other words, he is this professional expert, went through this whole entire therapy process only to find out that, wow, that doesn't take care of a lot of what's still going on. So people understand when I say moral injury, what that means is, everybody knows PTSD is to the brain. Everybody understands that. Moral injury is the same thing, except to the soul. And so the reason why there's so much disinformation, it's not really, even clinicians don't even want to move into this area because they don't really truly understand it. And this is why. PTSD is of the brain, so therapists, clinicians, we got it. However, the problem is it's dealing with the soul more. So clergy feels like this is more our area to work with. And so what I want to do is break it down so people can get a full understanding. And what's going to be shocking is that everyone that's listening to this show has experienced moral injury.
Okay.
And that's what's going to flip people out. Because so what happened in 2009, clinicians started working, and therapists, all these guys started working with the Afghanistan and Iraq veterans coming back home. So they're going through the PTSD model, they're going through the cognitive behavioral therapy, and they're doing their thing. And then they're coming to the end of their research going, oh my gosh, wait a minute, didn't we hear of this before? Then they go back and pull Dr. Shea's information off the shelves that they shelved because it was before its time, really. And now they're going, wow, this isn't helping the way that we thought it was going to help. So how I will break this down is PTSD is of the brain, as moral injury is of the soul. Moral injury, probably one of the best journals that I've read out of was Cambridge put out a journal, and they did this study, and it was giving it a breakdown of really the differences. Moral injury is primarily people that have had experiences either they have done to other people or situations or other people has done to them that makes them ashamed, that has huge guilt. They don't want anybody to know. And so what happened was when they started working with these veterans, it became apparent that the two look exactly the same looking at them, Casey. So it's really hard for clinicians or anyone to really fully understand the difference between the two. I thought I had PTSD my whole life because of a dysfunctional way that I was growing up in a kind of a stressful home, because long periods of stress will cause PTSD. Mine's moral injury. So this is my question to you and everyone else. Do you have something in you that has happened to you, that was said to you, that was done to you, that makes you ashamed? Does it give you little self-worth? Does it make you not have confidence? That is where we are at today in our society. In our next episode, I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit more. But with this right here, I want to stay within the context of the issue. So PTSD, when we're dealing with people within the brain, we really understand that because we've been working on it a lot longer. When it comes to moral injury, now it's of the soul. Now I'm gonna break down a little bit of what the soul means in various definitions. The soul really is connected to God. When we have a relationship with God, that becomes our soul. Our soul is our moral compass. That helps you and I, Casey, know that it's not okay to go out and shoot a whole bunch of people. It's not okay to drive your car into a parade full of people. Right. It's not okay to rape, beat, steal, rob people. We understand that. Those people are sociopaths primarily. And what happens is in our society, if you do not have the boundaries and the foundation of belief, and that something happens, and what triggered this moral injury study was the veterans that were coming back that were made to do something that they knew was against their moral compass, but it was an order.
Yeah.
You got to follow that order. And they did it. And then now they're just grief stricken for whatever the case may be. I worked with a vet who was a sniper, and he not only took out bad guys, but he had to take out, in some cases, kids. And he said he still sees their faces 20 years later. And so they have to deal with that. I'll break it down to society as a whole. In a lot of relationships, again, we're going to get into this a lot more detail in the next segment, but a lot of us are struggling from moral injury because at the bottom of this great big gigantic study from Cambridge, the journal that I read, it really comes down to having no self-worth. You're not really good for anything. That sounds a lot like most of the relationships that women get out of that are with guys that beat them down physically.
Abusive relationship.
Dude, nonstop. Yeah. You're dumb, you're fat, you're ugly, nobody will love
you. Put them down and so that they think that they need you, and without, the abuser, then they're nothing. And that's what you found that in this study. Please go ahead.
Yes. Exactly, man. And so what made me so interested in it is my whole life, I have two sisters that are my best friends, and my mother was my best friend. So I really love women, and not just because they're, women. I have had so many of them tell me stories that just broke my heart, almost brought me to tears, how they were treated by guys. And what happens is the girls are way too good for the guys. So they beat them down verbally to make them believe that they are nothing, so they won't leave them. And then when they finally do get out of the relationship and nice guys like me get to meet them and start talking to them, we realize there's a lot of hurt. And that's what really makes me sad. So for those that are watching this that feel like they have that inside of them, it's called moral injury. Your moral compass, something happened that wounded your moral compass. So now you're not really exactly sure how to deal with that, but it's guilt and shame. And I've worked with women who have been beaten, who have been raped, who were abused in many different areas, and they've never gotten over it. They're in their 40s and 50s. And this is sad to say, but a lady that I worked with probably a couple of years ago, recently I read in the paper, had committed suicide because she was raped 20 years ago and has been trying to commit suicide that long a period of time.
Tough.
That's how deep the wounds go. And she just couldn't get her handle on it. And she became an alcoholic. And then when I read in the paper that she had committed suicide, I thought, it's taken her 20 years to accomplish her goal. How sad. And she was a really sweet lady.
Yeah.
But she could not get over the rape. And that,
Right.
and a lot of women, I understand it would be traumatic, but that's really where moral injury comes into our society, because we need to start being a little more conscious of other people's feelings and other people's thoughts. Because when you take PTSD, and here's the interesting thing about this, Casey, when you look at PTSD and you read all the scientific studies and facts and things like that, and then you put right beside it moral injury, there's only here's the really two things, because I've looked at big charts with PTSD and moral injury over here.
They sound a
And
lot
in
the
the
same.
middle, what's that?
They sound a lot the same.
They are. Here's the differential. PTSD has doesn't have any of the same symptoms that let me explain this in a better way. So those that have moral injury do not have the psychological episodes of arousal like PTSD. But PTSD doesn't have that moral injury code that's inside of them, that they've done something wrong and it's all they're guilt ridden.
Guilt and the shame.
That's really the two. But unfortunately, what's happening in the reason why it's such a struggle, I mean, think about it. This started in the 90s by a psychiatrist, came back to fruition and started working on it in 2009. That's not that long ago.
Really?
And they still, when you read the studies and the journals, they still come to the conclusion, we still really do not know how they intertwine, how to help them. Because again, the clinicians want it all, because we're therapists. We know better, but the clinicians know about the soul and the relationship with God. And they want to really work with that, because more, in my professional opinion, as being a believer, it belongs almost in clergy, because you are dealing with the soul that you're not allowing yourself to be forgiven or forgive someone else. And that's going to rot and eat you alive.
And that's the moral compass you were talking about.
That's what our souls are. It's a moral compass. It's how God directs and helps us and moves in our path. And if your belief is not healthy, you become a society that we've become today, which is out of control, because we have no moral compass anymore. This is a soulless nation. And it saddens me, because when I try to work with a lot of the veterans or talk to, and again, I'm an educator. I want people to understand that I'm a researcher. I'm not a doctor. I just read all their stuff and I study all their stuff, and I take everything that I have from them, break it down, and want to give this information to people that normally wouldn't. There's so many guys, and we talked about it before, they don't want to go to therapy.
Right.
They don't trust the therapist. They don't want to open up. We talked about this in the last segment. The brain will shut down because it doesn't want to experience it. So they live in a very, very dark place, because they don't want to open it back up to experience it, nor do they want people to judge them based on what they may have.
So how are they going to get help? Right. It's
So they don't.
It's a dark place.
Isn't it just like a vicious cycle that no one's really getting out of?
Yeah. I mean,
but if we can take, what's that?
I mean, how do you, when you have this mindset where you don't want anybody to know, you don't want to go get help, because you're going to think that you're going to feel worse, you're going to feel weak, or all these things. but these things don't get better on their own, do they?
No, man. In fact, it gets a lot worse. And that we talked last time.
Yeah,
It's
that's what you
kind of like
said.
a cancer. It will grow until it consumes you. And so, if people could really understand, the ones that I think need moral injury more than anyone are the spouses of the veterans. I get more wives come to me asking to help their husbands than the husbands, because they love them. They want to see them get better. And so, again, my message will always be to veterans that are watching this, man, don't be afraid. There's a lot of great people out there doing a lot of great work. I'm here in Billings, Montana, in the Big Sky Country, and we have the Vet Center here that has veterans that are counseling veterans, and it's incredibly powerful. One of the guys that's most successful with moral injury training, he is a captain from the Army that is a pastor now, and so he has super insight on both, and he's doing a lot of great work. I would like to challenge most of the clinicians out there to get together with the clergy, and you guys sit down and just work it out, because neither one of you are right, neither one of you are wrong. There's different elements that's taking place within the physical body and the mental body that we have to come to. We have to come to some type of agreement to where let's work this
Work
together.
together. Yeah.
Because again, I thought I had PTSD, but come to find out now that I'm involved heavily into the moral injury study, everyone has it. I mean, there's no one that hasn't experienced some kind of a trauma in your life. Do you know what I mean? That has really affected you. And based on, a lot of people don't like using this term, especially in the clinician world. You are a victim of your inhabitants. If you are born and raised into a situation where there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of mental, physical, verbal abuse, you may be seeing it with your parents. Your brain doesn't develop properly because it's under stress, and that duress will not allow the brain to function and grow into a healthy mind cognitively. And so a lot of us, if you were born and raised, because I've seen a lot of this, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. Those people, that's their hardwired belief factor. That's a moral
They were
injury.
told that at a young age, you're saying?
Yeah, you're hardwired because that comes from a parent or whoever your guardian is, or a relationship.
Yeah.
And so we need to go backtrack, most of us, to kind of the beginning, to kind of almost rewire our brains and our methodologies and the way that we think and the way that we believe. And for my case, because I have such an amazing relationship with the Lord, I've been able to overcome a lot of this stuff by His help. I don't like medication. I don't like it. Now, it does help in a lot of areas, but I don't think that we need to be running to the VA every time we have an issue, or the doctor to give me a pill to make me feel better.
A Band-Aid. Yeah, that's a temporary.
A Band-Aid. Yeah, man, exactly. So you're not really you're dealing with the symptoms and not dealing with the issue.
Right.
And so I think with moral injury, if we could come together a little more to understand, and that's why this next segment is probably going to be the banger of all of our segments, even though these have been really good, because I'm going to dissect society and take a look at a snapshot just based on what I see, what I read, what I hear, and try to, for those of us that are healthy and that are true Americans. And I just want, here's a little disclosure. I'm not black and I'm not white. I'm not Democrat and I'm not Republican. I'm a veteran. I'm an American. Truth will set you free. And I just speak truths.
Yeah.
And this next segment is going to be loaded heavily. And it's going to be, if there's any one of these segments I can get out there, I would love for it to be all of these. But this one, just because so many people are so confused, so hurt, so spun out, watching our beautiful, amazing country lose its moral compass and going down the wrong path based on the people that we have running it. It's really going to open up a lot of people's lives, but it all comes back to us, Casey. Only Casey can take care of Casey. Only Thomas can take care of Thomas. You know what I mean? But if we could be there for one another and support one another, and just have someone that had that camaraderie that you can talk to and be real with, and that's all really that I try to do. I mean, like
when you bring the veterans together, that's what they're feeling for the first time in a long time, right?
Oh man,
when they come down,
I can't even. Blows me away. And I've said it in other segments. I've had a lady come up and she just broke down in tears. Her and her husband were veterans, and she said, "I'm just so alone. I just don't have any friends, and I don't really belong anywhere, and it's just so nice to meet you guys. And that's what, Warrior Wishes Montana is about, which is I'm the president of here in Billings, and there's other veterans organizations, and it's all about camaraderie, and it's all about being there for one another, because the stories are hilarious. It always ends up we're drinking, I mean, in every veteran story, we're drunk. I'm sorry, man. That's just the way. And all the veterans watch this going, yeah, Thomas, it's a really, really interesting, cool, fun world. But there's just a lot of people that are suffering that really I don't think need to be.
Maybe you could tease. We only got about 5 minutes left here, and maybe you could tease us, because I really want to hear your take on why we're letting such an amazing thing as this country. We're seeing it kind of slip away, and that's just one man's opinion. I think we might be agreeing on a few things, but a lot of things we're seeing slip away because of our poor leadership.
Yes. What I'm going to be talking about is in every relationship that a parent has with a child. I'm a father of 2 sons. I have a bonus son who's absolutely phenomenal. They're killing it. So proud of them. But even when I was running Independence Hall here in Billings with the veterans, even though a lot of them were older than I was, you have to take this parental stance. So the leaders of our states are like parents, and the children are like the constituents. Studies have shown this, if you do not have your child on a regime, a regular schedule, if you do not share with them their boundaries, we have to, as a human being, have to know our boundaries. And especially as children, they become reckless because they have no idea what their boundaries are. So a parent needs to set those boundaries. If you step out of those boundaries, there's going to be ramifications. There's going to be, as a kid, I'm going to take your phone, I'm going to take your computer, I'm going to put you in your room, you don't get the car keys. But there has to be, because I'm going to be telling a story about a guy several years ago. I had the opportunity to work in a men's prison, and I thought it was going to be fascinating because I always wanted to see what their heads were like. And one of the young men that I was working with was in for breaking and entering. He was 19, by the way. Breaking and entering, robbery, and assault. If you look on the news today, it's all breaking in, robbery, assault, and murder. And I asked him, Casey, dude, what are you doing in here? I mean, you're a clean cut kid. You're well spoken. I like you. We weren't supposed to do that, but I kind of befriended him. You know what his comment was?
What?
Nobody ever cared about me, so why do I care about me? There's the snapshot of our country, Casey.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing, the decay of moral injury that is coming to the surface. They stereotype them sociopath. They have no guilt. They have no feelings. They have no nothing. But our society in a lot of the states is a sociopath state.
Yeah.
Because they have no parent that's watching over the children, that's holding them accountable to do the right things.
I see.
But there's the setup.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hear about that one next. This was a great show, but that's a great topic too. I want to hear your take on that. But maybe can we do one question before we get out of here? All right, let me take one from the audience. Okay,
that'd be awesome.
All right, we have an anonymous one came in here. He says, they say, I've been home from the service for about a year now. I get more excited about possibly being called into war than I do about my civilian life. Do you see this a lot?
In studies of veterans that have come out of combat situations, 100% of them said, yeah, I'd go back in a heartbeat. The reason why is I think this is going to address this man's issue. You have purpose. You have camaraderie. You have a mission. You wake up and it's not about you. It's about your brothers. You have a purpose. And when you take these guys out of that situation that they're living in, that they're hardwired in, every human being wants to belong. We want to be needed. And when you're in the military, you are. And so what really, Casey, studies have shown, in interviewing them, when they come back, why are you so depressed? Because I've left my brothers. I left the world that I was comfortable with. I had purpose, I had structure, I had a meaning, I had a mission, and I
Mhm.
come home and all that's gone. That causes depression as much as anything.
That's what we talked about last time. You were telling us about, well, what happens when it's done, when it's over, what happens, and that was a great show too. I suggest people go back and watch that one. Hey, let's take the last minute here. Let me give it to you. Thomas Smith, tell us everything that you got going on. Tell us how to get a hold of you and what's on the forefront. And I can't wait to hear your next show. As this one was awesome. Great job. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody who wrote in, but please let me give you the floor.
This is a great opportunity for me because I've lived in the shadows for years, doing research, reading, studying, and I still do every day. I'm constantly learning. I love this opportunity to have this medium to be able to teach and educate people as much as anything. That's what I did years ago when I was in education. I feel like I'm more of a teacher than I am anything. So I'm not really looking, for clients. I'm not selling anything. pthomassmithcounseling@gmail.com will find me with any questions. P Thomas Smith, all lower caps, one word, @gmail.com. And my Facebook page is P Thomas Smith Counseling LLC. I would love people's support because I am coming out of the woodwork now and I am starting to get out there with your all's help. And I want to start helping educate people on what's going on. I'm not looking for clients or anything. There's a lot of great clinicians that are out there. Go find those guys and I'll help with resources. But it's just that it's time that we start learning about who we are, why we do what we do, because we are who we are because we do what we do.
Right.
And I just want let people know who are really struggling with moral injury and other things. What is it that you can do to help make your life better? And that's what we're doing, Casey.
Awesome. Guys, that's the one and only Thomas Smith. Great guest and just an incredible human being. Can't wait to hear what you have to say next. Guys, we will be right back. Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, man.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.